In this video, I'll talk about muscle and mind connection, continuous tension, peak contraction, pre-exhaustion, and negative reps. So what does it mean to have muscle-mind connection? Muscle-mind connection is when you are really thinking about what your muscle is doing, which muscle groups you're utilizing, and making sure that you're flexing the muscle at appropriate times with appropriate, you're really thinking about what it feels like to do the contraction. So a lot of times people in gyms, they'll be listening to music. I'm guilty of this. They'll be talking to their friends and family, and they're not really focusing on what they're doing. With the mind-muscle connection, you need to focus on what you're doing so you can get proper gains. And this is an important concept that a lot of bodybuilders who've succeeded in the past really stress, because you're not paying attention to what you're doing. Chances are you're not going to be doing it correctly, and well, you're probably going to fail. So with the mind-muscle connection, you're keeping a deep focus on what you're doing. You're thinking about what the muscle is doing, how it's doing it, and you're paying attention to it. You could be looking at your muscles and making sure that you're going at optimal speed and really getting a good contraction in your muscle. The concept of continuous tension is a very, very important one. At the same time, that will lead me to talk about what locking out is. So when you have continuous tension, that means that your muscle is under a certain workload and it's not taking any breaks at all during the periods of eccentric and concentric motions. So as you're doing your bicep curl, what you want to do is you do not want to relax at the very, very bottom. You don't want to relax the muscle at all. And when you come to the top, you also don't want to be chilling at the very top. With concentric motion, you don't want to be chilling at that top too long. You want to go up, go down, and go up. So a good example of it would be, so say you're doing your bicep curl, and sometimes people just basically go up, and then they go down, and they go up, and then they go down. What continuous tension would be is to not lock out at the bottom or not really lock out at the top. So you'll have a slight bend in your biceps, so you'll always have that flexion and that tightness, the continuous tension, and then when you come to the top, you're still staying flexed. So essentially you're always moving and you're always flexing. And because of that, you, like I told you earlier, fatigue the muscle and you confuse it more. So this is a technique you can employ every now and then, although you don't always have to employ it. Also, remember that while doing this technique, you're not doing the other technique that I've talked about in my other videos, which is full range of motion. Because with full range of motion, you do tend to lock out a little bit more. So keep that in mind. Peak contraction is when you're doing your exercise and you reach the maximum and you reach the high point of your muscle flexion. So when you're flexing your muscle, say you're doing your quadriceps and you're moving your legs up and down on a leg extension, you've really isolated it, you're reaching the peak tension. What it does is basically you flexed it to the point where you can't flex it no more. And you're rushing an optimal amounts of blood into that area. You're really focusing on it, and you've completed that particular exercise. So some people, they won't employ peak contraction depending on what they're doing and how they're doing it. So you've seen people bench press where they're only basically moving like this. That's a particular strategy actually, because they're not locking out. But if they get a lot closer to locking out, they can reach higher peak contraction by basically trying to do a much higher range of motion, and near the top of their exercise, or near the concentric portions, really try to feel the muscle contract and reach that peak contraction, and that'll give you more gains. Pre-exhaustion is a very interesting concept. The way it works is, say you go do your bench press. Normally you do it and you get done with your exercise and, well, you kind of feel the same way. if you want to target a little bit more of your triceps and you want to get maybe a little bit more soreness into your chest, and at the same time get more work into your chest and really want to force it to change, what you could do is you could just go do some flies. Just basically do the chest a little bit, get it flexed, do maybe a couple sets, and now you've pre-exhausted your chest. And essentially when you go do your bench press, your chest is going to be a lot more fatigued and you're going to activate a little bit more of your triceps. So at the same time, you know, you're putting in more work into that particular workout. So the pre-exhaustion method really works. It's a great method, and give it a shot. See how you feel. The way a negative rep works is as you're going up on your bench press and you're coming down, you really want to control it. So doing a concentric motion coming up to the top with your bench press and then coming down, your eccentric, is just as important. So keep in mind that there are two very important parts of your exercise. You know, the part where you really flex that muscle group, and then the second part where you're relaxing. At the same time, when you're doing an eccentric motion and you're coming back down, there's a special concept that you should understand. Your muscles are actually getting ready to do the concentric motion again, and when you're coming down and you're relaxing, it's almost like chambering a gun. You're getting it ready to do that particular action. And so when you're utilizing this principle and you're coming back down, you may actually reach a point where you can't come back up. So what you're going to need is you're going to need somebody to spot you, or depending on what you're doing, essentially lift the weight back up for you and then have you just bring it down. You don't really have to push it back up too much. They'll actually come in and they'll grab it and they'll pull it up for you, and then they'll kind of spot you, and then they'll just lower the weight down for you while you're doing your bench press, so you get that negative rep in, and then you'll explode again and you'll get the negative rep, and then you'll keep exploding and you'll keep doing that. Essentially that gives you more exhaustion, and like I said, more work, and more work equals more muscle. Keep that in mind. So in the next video I'll be talking about cycling your training, supersets and trisets, forced reps, iso tension, training till failure, and flushing. Thanks for watching, guys, and remember, you're that much closer to becoming a champion bodybuilder.